I'm 81 years old. I sit at my kitchen table most mornings before the sun comes up, hands wrapped around a mug that no longer warms me the way it once did. The house is quiet in a way that feels too big for one person. Sometimes the silence feels polite. Most days it feels accusatory. I built a life that looks impressive on paper. That is what keeps circling in my head. A good job, a solid home, respect in the neighborhood, a name people recognized. And yet here I am, alone with it. I don't say that for pity. I say it because it is the truth I avoided for decades. When I was younger, I didn't feel empty. I felt busy. In my 20s, everything moved fast. I worked at the factory then, long shifts that left my hands black and my back aching. I told myself that sacrifice was just part of being a man, part of being responsible. My wife Ellen would leave dinner covered on the stove when I worked late. I'd come home after she'd already fallen asleep. I'd eat standing up, staring at the clock on the wall, already thinking about the next day. We didn't argue much. We just stopped talking, not all at once, little by little. In my 30s, I took the promotion everyone said I deserved. More money, more hours, more pride. I bought the house with the bigger yard because that's what men like me were supposed to do. Ellen wanted a smaller place closer to town. She said she liked walking to the market. I told her we needed space for the future, for someday. Someday never came the way we imagined. Our children grew up around my work boots by the door. They learned my routine before they learned my voice. I kissed their heads in passing. I promised myself I'd slow down later. Later was always just ahead of me. There are moments I replay now that seemed small then. My daughter standing in the hallway with a drawing, waiting while I finished a phone call. My son sitting on the porch steps, watching me drive away again. Ellen sitting across from me at dinner, her eyes tired, her hands still, asking simple questions I barely answered. None of it felt like a tragedy in real time. It felt normal, necessary, mature. That is the cruel part. Nothing shattered, everything just thinned. Years slipped by like paper pulled from a stack. Birthdays, graduations, weddings. I showed up to most of them in a suit, camera in hand, smile in place. People told me I had done well. I believed them. Then the slow cost started to show itself in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. Conversations became shorter. Visits became less frequent. The house grew quieter, even when people were inside it. Ellen and I shared a roof, but not much else. We spoke in logistics instead of feelings. Bills, appointments, schedules. We slept in the same bed, with a space between us that felt wider every year. I told myself love didn't have to be loud to be real. I was wrong. The turning point didn't arrive like a storm. It came like a winter you don't notice until everything is already frozen. Ellen got sick. At first it was just tiredness, then doctors, then words I didn't fully understand but pretended to. I sat in hospital rooms that smelled like disinfectant and fear, listening to machines breathe for her while I stared at my shoes. I thought my presence there would make up for all the absences before. It didn't. One night, she squeezed my hand and asked me a simple question. Did we ever really know each other? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, because I didn't know how. She died quietly at dawn, the way many people do. I watched the light shift on her face and realized I had spent more time watching clocks than I had watching her. After the funeral, people told me I had been a good husband. They meant well. Their kindness felt hollow. The house felt enormous without her footsteps in it. I kept expecting to hear the kettle whistle or the radio crackle in the kitchen. Instead, I heard nothing but my own breathing. That's when the emptiness finally showed itself in full. I had a life full of things, and almost no one to share them with. The car in the driveway, the certificates on the wall, the neat rows of photographs that now felt like strangers to me. My children visit when they can. They are busy. I understand that better than anyone. We sit around the table and talk politely, but I can feel the distance my years of absence created. It isn't cruel, it's just real. Some nights I sit in my living room and try to remember the sound of Ellen's laugh. I can see her face clearly, but the sound slips away like smoke. That is something I cannot fix. I cannot go back and sit with her more. I cannot take back the late nights. I cannot relive the quiet dinners or fill them with better words. Time doesn't offer returns. If you are listening to me, I am not here to lecture you. I've heard enough lectures in my life. I am only telling you what I learned too late. Success is easy to mistake for a life. You can be admired and still be alone. You can work hard and still miss everything that matters. You can build something solid and wake up inside it feeling hollow. I wish someone had told me that showing up physically is not the same as being present, that love is not maintained by duty alone, that small moments, repeated over years, are what actually shape a life. If I could sit with my younger self, I wouldn't yell at him. I would just sit beside him at that kitchen table and say gently, "Slow down, look up, look at her." That is all. I don't hate the life I built. It gave me security. It fed my children. It kept a roof over our heads. I am grateful for that, in a quiet, complicated way. But gratitude doesn't fill the spaces left behind. Now my days are simple. Coffee in the morning, a walk down the street, the same neighbors who nod and move on with their busy lives. I tend to a small garden Ellen planted years ago, though she never lived to see it mature. Sometimes I talk to her out loud when I'm watering the tomatoes. Not because I believe she can hear me, because saying her name keeps her real to me. My remaining time feels thin, not dramatic, just limited. I don't fear death as much as I fear being forgotten too soon, or worse, being remembered only for what I produced and not for who I was. If this story means something to you, I hope you don't treat it like another thing to scroll past. Maybe sit with it for a moment. Maybe look at the people around you and really see them. You don't have to do anything heroic. Just stay a little longer when you can. Listen a little deeper when you're tired. Put the phone down before the conversation ends. That is not advice from a wise man. It is the confession of someone who learned the cost too late. The sky is starting to lighten outside my window now. Birds are waking up in the trees along the fence. The house is still quiet, but it feels softer in the morning. I will finish my coffee, wash my mug, and begin another ordinary day in a life that is nearly complete. And I will carry both things at once, the gratitude for what I had and the emptiness of what I missed. That is all I can do at 81.